Assalamu alaikum girls of M1D and M1E. I'm your new biology teacher. My name is Rifat Latif, and before starting the lecture, I must introduce myself um, to you. As I told you my name, but my qualification is that I did MSc in biochemistry and I also did MS in biomedical sciences. Along with that, I also did B.Ed. So this is my brief introduction because it's my first class with you. And today we are going to start about biology. We are going to talk about what is the introduction to biology, what is biology. And before going into that detail, we should know what science is. You might have been studying what science is, but basically science is a study of observations and then doing experiments on it. First, you do series of observations that what is happening in our environment this might be the reason that it is happening, and then you experimentally prove your theory that whatever you are thinking is logical or not, is it correct or is it wrong. After doing experiments, one makes a logical conclusion that this theory which we made, this hypothesis which we have created is correct or false. So the main principle of science is to experimentally prove your statements, your hypothesis. And then after proving them, you create, or the scientist creates, principles of nature. In ancient times, scientific information was not divided into different branches. So whatever they were doing was collectively called as science. You were not even calling it as science. It was just a general knowledge. For example, the first chemical reaction which occurred on Earth was of igniting a fire by rubbing two stones. Human was not familiar of that he is creating a chemical reaction when he was rubbing the two stones together. And then slowly and gradually human were collecting knowledge about plants, about eatable plants, about the plants which we cannot eat and things like that. Later on, after many centuries, we called it as science. And even after that, after many centuries, the science is divided it into different branches. Now science is divided it into the major branches are biology, chemistry, physics, maths, etc. So as I'm a biology teacher, I will focus on what biology is. Okay. I'm sorry, what I'm doing is going on the wrong slide. So biology is basically study of life. Study of life means study of living organisms. Bio is derived from the Greek word bios and logos. Bios means life and logos means thought or reasoning. The easy way to describe logos is to study. Collectively, we can call it as study of life, study of living organisms. But what thought or reasoning means? I mean, you are studying living organisms and you are thinking about it, you are creating a reason, you're logically predicting some theories or some points. So it is what is study of life. To understand, okay, to understand and appreciate nature, it is essential to study structures, functions, and related species of living organisms. Humans have been studying in the past. Um, Humans have been studying plants, and humans have been studying animals, microorganisms. We are collecting knowledge by studying their structure, their function, and all those reactions taking place in different organs. So this is happening for so long. which is collectively called as biology. Study of living organisms also provide us information, and it also provides us remedies to human problems. Now, what is remedy? You might not be familiar. Remedy means treatment, इलाज, किसी भी चीज का, किसी भी problem का इलाज, treatment. So when you study living organisms, you also provide solution to the problems or remedies of certain health problems, remedies for certain environmental issues and for food, etc. So you not only collect information, you also find out solution to certain problems. Now let's move to divisions of biology. Biology has three major divisions which study the different aspects of lives and major groups of organisms. The major divisions are zoology, microbiology, botany, and microbiology. Let's discuss them one by one. Let's discuss zoology. It is a division of biology. We do not call it as branch of biology. It's a division of biology which deals with the study of animals. We are going to study the external structure of animals, internal structure of animals, functions or chemical reactions occurring in them, anything, you name it. And when we talk about animals, so the animals can be mammals, it can be reptiles, it can be birds, it can be um, insects, it can be fishes, all categories of mammals, all categories of animals will be studied in this, are studied in this category. Next is botany. This is also a major division of biology where we study about plants, about all different kind of plants, whether it's a flowering plant or it's a non-flowering plant. There are certain plants which do not bear flowers. There's a whole major category of non-flowering plants. Or it's a fruit-bearing plant. So there is another major category of plants which bear fruits or flowers. And there is another category of seedless plants. There are plants, they do not bear seeds, and which is non-flowering plants, seedless plants, but there are also seed-bearing plants. I mean, a category of plants which only bear seeds. They do not bear flowers, they do not bear fruit. So there are different categories of plants which we study in botany. Now the third major division is microbiology. As the name shows, micro means very small, microscopic, the thing which we cannot see with the naked eye. So here we study microorganisms, the organisms which can only be seen through microscope. So in this category, the biologists study about bacteria, viruses, apart from bacteria and viruses, other microscopic protists which you don't know, like you might have heard of uh, amoeba, paramecium, euglena. These are unicellular organisms, single-celled organisms. So any microscopic thing is studied under this division. So these are the three major divisions of biology. Now let's move to the branches of biology. In order to study all aspects of life, these divisions are further divided into different branches. Now, what was the need to divide all these divisions into branches? Because day by day, after scientific discoveries, the knowledge is increasing manifolds. It is tremendously increasing. So, to make the study of these organisms easy, biologists have divided biology into different divisions and then further dividing them into branches. Even each branch is a whole world. It's a whole new world of knowledge. Even you do PhD in one of the subjects, it feels as if you are on the first step of staircase. It never feels that you have studied everything. The knowledge has no boundaries these days. Not even in the ancient times, but nowadays there is a huge amount of knowledge which we have to study. And we should not confine ourselves to one category, to biology or to chemistry or to physics. We should keep on collecting knowledge from every field, like from geography, from from economics, from like different regions of the world. It gives you immense pleasure. So let's discuss the branches of biology one by one. The first branch of biology which I'm going to discuss is morphology. This is the branch of biology which deals with the study of form and structure of living organisms. Kindly notice that in my slides, I have highlighted the important word like study of form, structure of living organisms, an example. You can also underline these words in your book and kindly note down the examples as well, as these examples are not mentioned in book. So I want you to write them in exams. So this is a branch of biology which studies the form and external structure or internal structure of living organisms, but it does not deals with the function of living organisms. For example, study of form and structure of horse. If I look at this golden horse, the beautiful one, I deliberately chose this one because I love golden horses. So if we are going to study the morphology of a horse, we see it is a four-legged animals. We see, we observe the mane, we observe the front lock of hair, we observe the tail and body shape and how it runs and how it has specialized characteristics like hoofs and all these features. Apart from external features, internal features are also studied in morphology, which is called as internal morphology, like how the digestive system of horse is, or a nervous system, or a reproductive system, or a respiratory system. Um, but we are not going to discuss functions of all these organs and external structure because morphology only deals with form and structure of living organisms. It does not emphasize on function. Is it clear? Now let's move to the next branch of biology, which is anatomy. The study of internal structures is called anatomy. I mean, here we are going to go into the depth of internal structures. We are not superficially observe internal structures like in morphology, but here we are going to study detailed structures. How look at the example of study of internal structure of frog. We will look at the digestive system of frog and going into the details of reproductive system of frog, or these are lungs, going into the detail of lungs, how they respire. But again, in anatomy, we do not focus on functions. We do not study their function of every organ. We only study external features, the structure of the cells, the structure of the cavities, the structure of the tissues, but we do not talk about function of all these things because I will discuss that where we study functions of different organs and different organisms. So anatomy is study of internal structures. Let's move to the next branch, which is histology. Histology is microscopic study of tissues. What is microscopic study of tissues? Tissues, and the first and foremost question is, what is a tissue? Tissue is a group of cells performing a common function. This is also not mentioned in your book, but we will discuss it in detail in fourth chapter. But I must tell you what is a tissue. Many cells performing a common function. For example, our eyes are made up of many cells, like hundreds of cells, I'm sorry, performing a common function of vision. So our eyes are able to see. And let's look about the ear. It's an organ. It has different tissues, but many of the tissues are performing the function of hearing. Let's talk about tongue. Our tongue tissues, our tongue is made up of many cells, and all these cells together makes tongue tissues, which are performing the function of taste. I mean, different areas of our tongue taste different things. Like some of the areas taste bitterness, some of the areas taste sourness, some of the areas taste sweetness, but these are different tissues performing a common function of taste. So this is what a tissue is. Like brain tissues are involved in the function of connecting together. So any kind of a group of cells performing one function or related function, we call them as tissues. So histology is the study of tissues. As tissues can't be seen through the naked eye, we can't see it in common life. Whenever we have to study tissues, we have to use microscope. Without that, we cannot study these tissues. This is why I'm calling it as microscopic study of tissues. Let's take an example. Study of muscle tissues. These tissues are present in our arms and different areas. Basically, there are three different types of muscle tissues, but I'm not going into the detail of types. But I must tell you, look at the structure of one tissue, tissue number one. It has different structure. Look at the second diagram, where different cells are present, many cells are present, but all of them have same structure and all of them will perform same function. Look at the third type of muscle tissue. There are many cells, but all of the cells have same structure and they also perform common function, same function. This is why we call them as tissues. These three diagrams are of three different types of tissues. And you're also going to write this example. Note down this example. Let's move to the next branch of biology, cell biology. As the name shows, this is a branch of biology where we study about cell, about the structure and function of a cell. Not only cell, we will also study cell organelles. Now, you are not familiar of organelles, but you are familiar of a cell. In previous classes, you know about a cell having nucleus, plasma membrane or cell membrane, and cytoplasm, and you might be familiar of mitochondria. If you are not familiar, it's fine. But you know, cell has different structures. Cell is composed of many different structures. We call them as organelles. Like one of the organelle is mitochondria, as shown in this diagram, chloroplast, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, ribosomes, rough endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes. We are going to study about all these organelles in fourth chapter, and I just want to name them because you might have heard these names. These are organelles present inside the cell, and we study about the function and structure of all these organelles and cell and everything related to cell under the heading of cell biology, right? Let's discuss about example of cell biology. I'm taking mitochondria as an example of this branch. When we talk about study of mitochondria, we will study about structure of mitochondria, function of mitochondria, and all the relevant detail of mitochondria is also part of cell biology. So everything relevant to cell is covered in cell biology. And I must tell you, there are huge books of cell biology. We just think that cell is such a small thing, so there must be a very scarce amount of knowledge, but it's not true. We have huge books in our libraries about cell biology, and I also haven't read them, but I do have attended a whole course of cell biology, because thousands of reactions are happening in cell, and thousands of different complex phenomena are occurring inside the cell, as cell is a building block of living organisms. Cell represents our whole body, and lots of different reactions are occurring in it. It's a whole new world, and I must say, welcome to this new world. Let's move forward to next branch, which is physiology. Physiology is a branch of biology which deals with the study of functions of different parts of living organisms. Now, this is the branch. This is not anatomy. In anatomy, we were focusing on structure. In morphology, we were also focusing on form and structure of living organisms. But in physiology, we only focus on functions, right? Functions of living organisms. For example, digestive activity of stomach. Whenever we are going to study about stomach in physiology, we will not discuss its structure, its tissues, or its everything relevant to structure. We will only focus on function. We also cover a little bit of anatomy in physiology. थोड़ा बहुत tissues देखने पड़ते हैं, but you have to only focus on what the stomach is doing, or what the brain is doing, what is the function of eyes, how do they observe, how do we hear. So there are different examples of physiology as well, but I mentioned only one to make it easy for you. But in exams, you can write any kind of example, like you can say study of process of hearing of air, or study of vision in eyes. You can give any sort of example relevant to functions. Let's move to the next branch. Yeah, this is genetics. In genetics, we study about genes and their role in inheritance. Now the question is, what is genes and what is inheritance? Let me tell you gene in a very basic way, as you haven't studied anything before, so I will tell you in a very easy way. Kindly look at the diagram. Genes are basically located on chromosomes. See, this one, the bigger one is chromosome. But the chromosome itself is made up of DNA. This blue string is DNA. And a part of that DNA, or a short sequence of DNA, is called as gene. I repeat, a short sequence of DNA is called as gene. Right now, I'm not going to tell you about DNA because I will confuse you, but I must tell you DNA makes chromosomes. And a short sequence of DNA is called as genes, which means if this purple one or mauve one is a gene, then there is another gene, and then there is another gene, another gene, another, and this DNA is coiled here in chromosomes. So one chromosome is made up of thousands of different genes. And you might have heard this word of genes, that our genes control our behavior, like hair color, eyes color, voice, body shape, everything is manipulated by these genes. Everything is coming from these genes. कहते हैं ना sometimes कि मेरे genes बड़े strong हैं. Because of my genes, my bones are very strong. Or I have acquired this fair color from my genes, or I have inherited it from my parents. You might have heard this word of inheritance. Like you have heard this word as I inherited this from my mom. I inherited this from my father. Some of the girls who have curly hairs, they do say, my father has curly hair, or my mother has curly hair, that's why I do have. Or the blue eyes are coming from my grandmother. So this is what is inheritance. We talk about the trait. So what is the definition of inheritance? It is the transmission of characteristics from one generation to the other. It is the transmission of characteristics from, let's say, parents to the daughter or son. Transfer of characteristics from parents to offsprings. In biology, offsprings means your son or daughter, your progeny. Now you're not even familiar with the word progeny. I mean, parents giving birth to the next generation, and then next generation in human is called as daughter or son, but in biology we call it as offspring. So what is inheritance? It is the transmission of characteristics from parents to offsprings, from one generation to the next generation. That can be your grandparents to your parents, from parents to you, generation after generation after generation. Like my eyes color is acquired from my mother, even from my father. My hair length is also dedicated to my mom. Sometimes short hair is also inherited from parents, or length, or your height, or your weight. These are all things we call it as traits, and this is what inheritance is. But these traits are defined by genes. Genes are the one which define our traits. Genes are the one which define inheritance. We inherit all these things by inheriting genes. These genes are coming from parents and from grandparents and from the grandparents. See, genes are controlling our characteristics. So, what is genetics? Study of genes and their role in inheritance. The geneticist, scientists who study genetics are called as geneticists. They will study about genes, about DNA, about inheritance, how do we inherit. All this is done by geneticist. And the example is study of genetic makeup of monkey. You can also say that study of genetic makeup of human, study of genetic makeup of chimpanzee, or study of genetic makeup of insects, study of genetic makeup of bacteria. So when you study about genes and their role in inheritance, this is what genetics is. If you don't understand what gene is or inheritance is, you can ask me the question, I will answer. Okay. The next branch is, oops, it happened. I changed the angle. So next branch I can't see. Oops, oops, oops. It's. Let me just move it a bit. Embryology. Embryology. This is also, I have to teach you different things in this branch. It is the study of development of an embryo to new individual. Now the question is, what is an embryo? An embryo is all the different stages from a zygote till a newborn baby. Like, look at this diagram. In embryology, we study all these different stages. First, a zygote is formed, and then two cell stage. That zygote divides into two cells, four cells, many cells, 16 cells, or blastocyst is a, do not look at the term blastocyst. I only have to tell you that one cell, which is a zygote, divides into two cells, four cells, many cells, and then a lizard-like structure, and slowly and gradually a baby is formed, and then this baby comes into this world. Study of all these stages is called as embryology. Now I have to tell you what a zygote is, because you are not familiar with this word zygote, that single cell I talked about. Let's look at this diagram. How a zygote is formed. Zygote is formed by the fusion of egg and sperm. I repeat, a zygote is formed by the mixture of egg and sperm. Sperm is coming from male reproductive system or a male, and egg is coming from female reproductive system. Both of them fuse together to make zygote. Now this zygote is a single cell. It goes and implants, or क्या कहना चाहिए, fixes into the mother reproductive system or into female's reproductive system. This zygote is a single cell. This one, fertilized egg, I'm calling it as zygote. It is changing into two cells, four cells, eight cells, many cells, then into a baby-like structure. And what I'm telling you is study of all these developmental stages is called as embryology. Or we can say that study of embryo is called as embryology, right? From a zygote till a newborn baby is formed. Let's talk about example. Study of human embryo. This diagram is of human embryo, but we can also write study of chick embryo or study of monkey's embryo or study of elephant's embryo or study of dolphin's embryo, right? But in every case, embryo is not formed. We will discuss this thing maybe sometimes later. Let's move to the next branch, which is taxonomy. It is the study of naming and classification of organisms into groups and subgroups. So I have to tell you what is naming of organism. We have different names of organisms like monkeys, chimpanzees, humans, and horses, frog. But these are all the names of in English. We've called a frog as mendak in Urdu, daddu in Punjabi, and chindaha in Pashto, I think so. I have asked this from students. So, but in scientific world, we give a specific name to an organism, and that name consists of two words. Like humans' scientific name is Homo sapiens. Frog's scientific name is Rana tigrina all over the world. So this is what you call it as naming of an organism. Every organism has a specific name in science. Then what we deal in taxonomy, after naming, we also classify organisms into groups and subgroups. Into like, you know, we divide organisms into kingdom Animalia, kingdom Plantae, kingdom Monera. What is kingdom Monera? All the bacteria of this world, every bacteria is studied in kingdom Monera. And all the single-celled organisms, all the microscopic single-celled organisms are studied in kingdom Protista. I'm not going into the details of prokaryote or eukaryote. Kindly do not panic because I haven't taught the detail of this five kingdom classification. I'm just touching it. That king organisms have been categorized into kingdom Monera, which is all about bacteria, kingdom Protista, which is all about unicellular organisms, kingdom Animalia is all about animals, kingdom Plant is all about plants, kingdom Fungi is all about fungus. Haven't we heard about bread के fungus लग गई है, इसको उल्ली लग गई है? So I'm not going to detail into the detail of prokaryotic and eukaryotic because you will be confused. I will teach these terms later on. I'm just telling here that in taxonomy, we divide organisms into different kingdoms and then into further groups and into further groups and into further smaller groups. Like you're familiar of kingdom Animalia. In kingdom Animalia, there are two major groups: the organisms with backbone and the organisms without backbone. The organisms without backbone are called as invertebrates, and you know all the insects, worms, smaller organisms, starfish, and all such kind of organisms are included in that group. But all the organisms which have backbone are called as vertebrates, like mammals, human, um, fishes, reptiles, and all these things are into the group of vertebrates. So let's talk about example. Study of five kingdom classification and grouping and subgrouping of undiscovered organisms. Undiscovered organism? What I mean is the organism which has not been discovered before. There are certain organisms. So the scientists who discover them place that organism into a specific group on the basis of the characteristic of that organisms. They study that organism, their external features, internal features, and they give them a specific scientific name and put them into a specific group. This is what we do in taxonomy by classifying organisms into groups and subgroups, right? So let's move to the next branch. I think it's about to be 40 minutes and I will be unable to record lecture anymore. So we will study the other branches in the next class. So from now on, I'm saying Allah Hafiz, and you can ask me questions in WhatsApp group, and we can also come live on Zoom, right? Allah Hafiz.